my husband went on a scholarship to Cambridge. I joined him there, and I did some little courses, things, and he was doing his Commonwealth, some scholarship with the other. So we were there for about 8-9 months, and my children were with my parents-in-law. When we came back, just after we'd almost landed, about 10 days between that, the great split took place when Giri was then chosen over Sanjeev Reddy, and this whole split took place, and the vote of conscience.
The split of the Congress. Can you just elaborate a little bit? One word, one line on it.
See, my father-in-law was very, very close to Indira Gandhi, and she used to rely on him on a lot of things, particularly where the party was concerned. She had come under difficult circumstances in the sense that there were these huge leaders, Morarji Desai and Kamaraj and many others, Sanjeev Reddy, Jagjeevan Ram, and all these leaders who were considered much more senior to her. So I remember when the news of the death of Nehru came, and we went to see off my father-in-law at the Lucknow airport to come here. He was pacing up and down because looking so serious, my husband and I didn't dare ask him. So anyway, he came here, and then the story was that how to get Indira Gandhi elected as the next leader. It wasn't an easy job, but I think they brought Kamaraj around, but I wouldn't know the very deep details of that, except that she got elected.
And I think that was when Lal Bahadur Shastri died, after that.
Yes, immediately after he died. Sorry, not Pandit Nehru, Lal Bahadur Shastri. So when she got elected, she became Prime Minister. And after having become Prime Minister, that problem started because there was a lot of resistance to her having become. She was not an automatic choice, but she went through a lot of resistance and non-cooperation. So anyway, she came into her own when that CWC meeting took place, when she said we vote of conscience, and Giri was put up there. That was the time when it was 68, 69, when I really joined my father-in-law because he was overburdened with work. There would be thousands of visitors in the house. He was a member of parliament. I would go in and out, and there would be telephone calls, and that was not the era when ministers or MPs or anybody kept staff. So there was no staff in the house. It was just me. My husband couldn't work because he was a civil servant, so he couldn't be a part of any political process. So he was out of it. The children were too young, so there was just me looking after his food, his clothes, his the normal household, and in addition to that, the telephone calls, messages. So that was the first time I learned from a close quarter what politics was about. But because we came out triumphant, and I remember the Shastri Bhavan board showing the results coming out for Giri, who had, came in the second round and things. So the excitement of that. Then at that time, all these ministers, including Shah and those Gujral, Dinesh Singh, all these people used to come over, and my father-in-law used to go there. So I saw a lot of goings on, but and that the goings on were to keep this going and to see that Giri does get elected, because that would mean him. And so it was really starting off with helping him. I really wasn't interested. I never was. I didn't know what politics was about. Then I got in, that was my first brush. After that, I looked after him. I looked after his house. I looked after the household. And then when he became a minister, again, I was the housewife because my mother-in-law was much too fragile and didn't look so. And I was the only one that, really saw to it, which meant visitors, which meant looking after the normal household, looking after the children, seeing their homework, looking after a husband who was very social. So we had a lot of outings to do, And the calls of duty where he was concerned, I didn't want to neglect that, and we never did. So there we were, living that. That was when I really got to get into. I didn't get into it. I was really somebody at outsider, but helping somebody who was a relative, and somebody who I respected, and somebody who I thought needed help. And I couldn't have run away from it. But even then, I never thought of entering politics. And then, of course, came the emergency, and when my husband was posted in Agra, and then all that happened, you know, this is a part of history, and stories galore about it. And then after that, when the Morarji Desai government came in, the Janata Dal came in, I think it went on a bit of a witch hunt, you know. My husband, for instance, who had nothing to do with politics, but the fact that he happened to be Shankar Dikshit's son, he was posted right from Agra, where he was the municipal commissioner, to Gorakhpur, and a kind of a, what should we call it, a posting which wasn't the best of postings. My father-in-law was the governor at that time of Karnataka. He resigned immediately after Indira Gandhi lost. He sent me here and to tell Indiraji that he was sending his resignation. She said, "Don't be stupid." I said, "No." He says, "I'm not going to serve this government." So he came back. He had a tiny little house on rent in Lucknow. Do you know, they threw his luggage out, and so he was homeless. Absolutely, they just threw his luggage. Mr. C.B. Gupta came, and we saw his car parked outside, and there it was, his luggage being thrown out. That was a great shock to us, and it was a trying time, because he was far too, you know, far, I don't know the exact word. No, he didn't have money, of course, but he also felt that staying with a son and a daughter-in-law may not be the best thing for him. So we found a tiny little house, a two-roomed house in the cantonment, where no politics was there, so he stayed there. But he went through this very, very trying time, after having been the home minister of this country and our governor and all. To have treated him like that was very, very distinct. Anyway, we were in Gorakhpur, then we would come to see them every weekend and all, so that they had a feeling that we were together. There's never been any misunderstanding. After that, of course, when Indira Gandhi came back, then we went to, Vinod got posted to Delhi, and then Dada lived with us. We lost my mother-in-law, and we've always treated our domestic staff as members of the family. So we lost a servant who used to serve my father-in-law for past 50 years or so. We lost him. It was a great loss for all of us. He was very distressed. Then we lived here for quite some time. The children grew up, went to school here. I must tell you an interesting story about Gorakhpur. My kids went to a local school there. There's nothing like, it's just an ordinary school. So my daughter, a teacher, told her that, they weren't interested in school at that time because it was too much of a contrast. They wouldn't study, they wouldn't do the things they were expected to do by that. So the teacher would scold her quite often. So one day she just got up, full height and all, and said, "आपको मालूम है कि हम बड़े उच्च कोटि के ब्राह्मण हैं?" So the teacher came cycling to the house and he said, "आपकी बेटी ये कह रही थी." So we were rather shocked, that the children again. But I said, "How did you get to know that you're an उच्च कोटि का ब्राह्मण?" So she said, "हाँ तो क्लास में सब यही पूछते हैं, कौन सी जात है, कौन सी बिरादरी है, कौन सी भाषा है." So she said, मैंने भी कह दिया एक दिन कि मैं उच्च कोटि की ब्राह्मण हूँ. So these, but my son was far more docile and naughty in his own way. Anyway, we came back to Delhi. They went to modern school. And they came back to Delhi before Vinod had come here. He was still in Gorakhpur. I brought them here. One of the members of parliament was good enough to give us a flat in South Avenue, which we used. I started working because we didn't have enough money. So I worked for the Garment Exporters Association and earned, when I went to the friend who ran this association, he said, "How much are you expecting?" I said, "About 400 rupees or something." He said, "Are you crazy? We're going to give you 1,500 rupees. I thought I'd got the world because, 1,500 was a lot of money. So anyway, so I stayed here, Vinod stayed there. We brought up the children. After that, when my father-in-law and Vinod got posted here, they finished their schools. Son went to St. Stephen's. He went to boarding over there. My daughter went to Lady Shri Ram. And since then, that's been there. And I got sucked in really in 1984 after Indiraji's demise, after she was killed. Rajiv Gandhi spoke to my father-in-law that I would like Sheila to contest from UP. Now, I hadn't a clue. I didn't know what a polling booth was. I hadn't anything, because that's not the level of politics that I had done. So anyway, I was pushed into it, or rather, cajoled into it. Pushed is a wrong word. Cajoled into it. I contested that election, won it. I remember my first speech in a mela, where you have the hearts in a village every week. So I just stood on the बैलगाड़ी and took a mic and said, "मैं आपसे वोट मांगने आई हूँ, मैं कांग्रेस की हूँ, इंदिरा जी की इतनी शहादत हुई है." Some tried sentences like this, and there it was. And everybody was looking at me because, they didn't know where I'd hopped. I don't belong to Kannauj, nothing. But we took that risk. My father-in-law and my husband both encouraged me, said, "Come along, you're going to win this," because great sympathy wave, my father-in-law said, was going to come for Indira Gandhi. So this is your time to enter politics. My husband was keen that somebody should do it. He couldn't do it, so I had. And there I was in parliament. So it wasn't either sought after, nor imagined, nor in my plan of events or action. I was just looking to.
And you've never looked back since then in politics?
No, after Rajiv Gandhi lost in 89, was it? Yes, 84.
But just go back.
I became a member of parliament in 1984. And I came to parliament. I must tell you, the first day I entered parliament, when we were to elect Rajiv Gandhi as the leader of their house, my God, my legs were almost, sort of like jelly. I said, here I'm entering a portal which has had people like Jawaharlal Nehru and Rajendra Babu and Ambedkar and so many big names, I said, "Hum choti si cheez, yahan par kya?" I was really not petrified, but certainly very emotional and very nervous. Anyway, we had that. And then within about a year of my being in parliament, a year and a half, I was made Minister of State. Why Rajiv Gandhi picked me up, I have no idea. But every time I had to go to parliament, it wasn't a nice feeling, because I thought, oh God, imtahan hai, they say, nervousness and all. Anyway, we went there. Then I became Minister for Parliamentary Affairs. Unfortunately, within a year after I had become Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, I lost my husband. And he died under very, very, shall I say, painful circumstances. He died in a train. My father-in-law's birthday was in the 12th of January. He was given a doctorate by the University of Kanpur. They were coming back on the night train to Delhi. My son, my father-in-law and him. I had to leave for the United States the very next day, so I came back earlier. And I had just barely landed in New York. It was somewhere in the middle of the night. I just landed in New York when Ghare Khan, who was the UN representative of India at that time, came over and said that they want to speak to you very urgently in Delhi. So there was a very, very close friend of mine, of Vinod and mine, Rajagopal, also an IAS, who I rang up and I said, what's happened? Why are you so keen to speak to me? He said, you know, Vinod is not well. So I said, Vinod is not well? So he said, yes, he's not well, and we want you to come back immediately. Now, I thought that they were hiding something from me. So I said, Raju, why don't you tell me the truth? He said, no, you come here, take the flight back. I took the Concorde, you know, because that was the next most immediate flight. It was an awful flight, you know, because the speed is too much and you feel all. And of course, I was very tense about what had happened, and I was absolutely sure in my heart that he was just not just it, he was no more. When I came to London, where it stops, and then we switch on to another aircraft, when I came to London, then Mr. P.C. Alexander was there to receive me. Then I said, bas dekha, ye pakki ho gayi baat, that he is no more. I didn't dare. When I landed in Bombay, then Mr. Veer Bahadur Singh, from the Chief Minister of UP, was there to receive me in his plane. And my sister, cousin sister, was in Bombay, was there also. They took me immediately to that private plane of theirs, and I asked my sister, I said, is it all over? She said, yes. And that finished me off. But flying from Bombay to Delhi gave me time to think that I have to not show any weakness, because my father-in-law was 90 at that time, 89 or 90 years old. He's lost a child, was only child. So that was, I have to be strong for him. And above all, I have to be strong for these two children. My son had just entered college, my daughter was in school. So I said, they're going to be without her, and I have nobody. So I braced myself up, but of course, you can be very brave and finish off when you see the whole thing. So I came here and we cremated my husband, and I asked my father-in-law, would you like to wait for a day? And he said, would you like to wait? I said, no, I want him cremated immediately. And he was cremated and all that. We picked up another life. Rajiv Gandhi was very kind, very considerate, and he came and told me and met me and said, what can I do for you? I said, you can just make me busy. That's all, busier than I am. It was then that I became PMO, then I became chairperson of the Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru centenary celebrations. So I immersed myself in work, and my father-in-law was a great support. And I think vice versa, because neither of us would share our emotions except talk. But it was the most shocking thing that has ever happened to me, especially when he was neither ill, nor was he a heart or a blood pressure or anything kind of a patient. I don't know, some vein seems to have burst, and that was that. At the wrong place. And it was in the train, because he had gone to the washroom at about 3 or 4 in the morning, that's what they guess, just to, like anybody. And he never came out of that. So in fact, my father-in-law and my son came home looking for him. My son took my father-in-law home because, you know, he was old. So he said, "Main wahan jaake phir pata karunga." And then they broke open the train had gone into the yard. They broke open the door and found him completely dead. So I picked up my strings of my life. This would be the third phase of my life: school, college, falling in love, having a beautifully married life, lovely children, lovely parents-in-law. And this was the shock that I don't think I have even today forgotten, really.
And you continued with your politics?
Yes, I continued with my politics after Rajiv lost. then I felt somewhat rudderless, you know. I didn't know what to do or what. We helped in the party, we did all the party work. Then he'd also died. So after that, I just gave it up. I thought there was no, I couldn't adjust myself to the others. The way of thinking, or you know, the kind of ethos one had developed or grown up with or taught was completely gone. Then I was out of politics and for about 6, 7, 8 years and lived in Nizamuddin, my own house. I married both my children there, and I wasn't nostalgic about not having lost politics or something. I went on with my life, relaxed life, this thing. Then I became, Sonia Gandhi wanted me to look after the Indira Gandhi Memorial Trust. I did that work. It was just about 2 hours, 3 hours a day, but it kept me going. I mean, it kept me involved in something. And we did a lot of conferences and all the rest of it. And after that, one fine morning, when the elections were announced, was it after PV had lost and the next time around, you know, after these small, yes, they rang me up and said, 2 in the morning, George rings me up and says, Sheila ji, you have to contest an election. I said, no, I don't want to. So, and from where? He said, East Delhi. So I said, are you crazy? I haven't even seen that place. I've never been beyond the river here. I don't know what East Delhi is about. So he said, no, you have to do it. It has been decided. So it was the last day of filing the nominations. I called my family, my sisters and my kids less, my sisters and all. I said, what do I do? So they said, well, you have to make up your mind. I couldn't because my mind was not my own. So I resisted, and at 3 o'clock I went and did my filing of the nomination. I lost that election by 40-odd thousand because I could have won it. I'm convinced of that. But for the fact that there was a lot of sabotage within the party here and outside. Anyway, I lost that election. And 2 months after I lost that election, that was in January sometime, 2 months or 3 months after that, in May, actually, in May, Mrs. Gandhi said, you will become the PCC president here. I said, what? So she said, yeah, you will. So I took it on. She said, I've consulted everybody, the Sajjan Kumars and the Jagdish Titlers and the Mahendra Singh Sathis and so on and so forth. So I said, all right. And since then, I've been doing this work.
So you became the PCC president, and when did you first become the chief minister of?
The PCC president I became in May. From May to November, we had huge demonstrations and went out and garnered the party. And the elections were in November, and came back with a 2/3 majority, thumping majority.
And that was in 1998?
1998.
So
Then 1998, and the rest is all history for all of you to know, because the Congress has been elected 3 times over.
And what do you think is the reason for that? The reason for this endorsement time and again from a very demanding populace?
You know, my father-in-law, before he died, and I lost the Kannauj election, UP election, he said that I had mentioned to Indira Gandhi that if she's fit for any place, it is Delhi. And I didn't take it sort of, you know, because he said she understands the ethos of Delhi. She's grown up here. She's been educated here. Her friends are here. Everybody, because of Vinod service and Dikshit ji's own stature, everybody knew me much more in Delhi than anywhere else. So I think Delhi made me feel comfortable, and I think somewhere Delhiites felt comfortable with me. I think that is one of the reasons. I would say the basic reason.
There is a certain sense of empathy between...
Yes, yes.
Can you
Yes.
talk a little bit about that?
The empathy primarily is that Delhi is a city which has changed enormously. You know, when I was a kid, the old Delhi culture was the culture of Delhi. There were no restaurants, it was just these puri walas and you know, patile ke chola walas and garam jalebi walas. And then after partition, which happened when I was there, after partition it suddenly changed from a city which was the Dilli wala ki city to a Punjabiyat city, you know. The Punjabiyats came on, and the Punjabis with their enormous energy and their entrepreneurship took over Delhi. After that, Delhi has been inundated by people from all over the country, particularly the states of UP, Bihar, Kerala. For instance, all the civil servants in Delhi, I mean, at the clerks and the nurses and all were Keralites, so there was their Northeast. So, you know, Delhi has been evolving all the time. It's not a static city. It's demography, and people come here and find a niche for themselves. But what I found lacking in Delhi was, always was, after the partition, that it was alien to them. They wanted everything out of it, but not give it back anything. You know, like you would your gaon or the city you've been born in. There wasn't that kind of. I think because I belong to Delhi, really, having studied here and everything else, I think I've managed to bring a pride in the Delhi wala. Okay, look, I am now a Delhi wala. I'm not going to get back. And I've said it very often that no politician, no bureaucrat who comes from his or her state ever goes back. They want a foothold here. So if you want a foothold here, you have to love it also. You have to change it the way you want it. And no one person or a government can do it. It has to be the people's feeling. So I think this was the kind of, I can relate to Delhi walas. I may not be able to relate to a Bombay wala or a Calcutta wala or a Chennai person, but I can relate to Delhi walas. I understand their poverty here. I understand the riches here. I understand the various cultures here, the Punjabi culture and the Keralite culture. So I think that is what I can relate to everybody.